And this is a mystery box.
Or the mystery box.
What's in the box?
Mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat.
Okay, everyone, obviously we are back for another episode, and I have a confession to make. In the previous 4 episodes, I've been saying that my sister Martha...
Why did you say that name?
...sent me 7 long boxes when my parents needed more space in their house. The truth of the matter is, my sister Martha sent 7 long boxes and 1 short box. And the way the stack of comic books made sense, we're going to get into that short box today. So we finished 1 long box. Now we're doing a short box. The short box is about half the size of that long box. And so without further ado, I'm going to open this thing up and we will start looking at comic books. Okay, right off the bat, we've got something a little interesting. So this did not fit in a long box. This is Punisher magazine. So it was in sideways. So I had to grab it off of the side, but it looks like it survived the trip okay. Marvel used to print, actually several of the publishers used to print magazine-sized issues like this. And yep, black and white. Usually they're reprints of other stories. So this is, yep, The Rev and Ministry of Death. So it's a couple stories just reprinted in 1 magazine. So pretty cool. Now, with that out of the way, we'll grab a stack of actual comic books. You might notice the visuals here are a little different. We're trying something a little different with the lighting to reduce the glare off of these bags, just so you guys can see the covers a little bit better. The Eternals. This is a 12-issue limited series. I hope we find the full series. I'm just looking. That is definitely not Eternals 2. This is a super interesting story, and we can talk about it later when we find the rest of them. But for now, we'll just we'll set that aside. Martial Law, no idea what this is. Doubt it's worth anything. This looks creepy and weird. East of the Viking Heroes. I love sword and sorcery stuff. You guys know I love sword and sorcery stuff. This looks cool. I'll read that. We've got, let's see, issue 2, issue 3, issue 1. So I don't know if how many there are, but we've got the first 3. DN Agents. I appreciate, the people that know me know that I appreciate wordplay, but I don't appreciate it that much. I don't think I'll check these out. Ghost Rider. Let's see, $1.50, early to mid 90s. Part 7 of 7. That's a little bit of a bummer. Maybe we'll find the rest. But I like Ghost Rider. I like the Nick Cage movie. Gem, Son of Saturn. I don't know what these are. We've got 3, 7, 4. He fights Superman. That's kind of cool. 5, 2. So it looks like there were 12 issues total. This is issue 12. And the finale, but we never saw issue 1. Oh, neat. Okay. So this is Thor and Beta Ray Bill. For a while, Beta Ray Bill took over for Thor. And he uses Stormbreaker, which you'll remember from Marvel Endgame, Avengers Endgame. It looks a little different here. So regular Thor had Mjolnir. Beta Ray Bill had Stormbreaker. If we find the first appearance of Beta Ray Bill, that'll be a nice little key issue. I'm not entirely sure what number that is, but I'm relatively certain it's not 350. Even though we do have 2 copies. 358, Beta Ray Bill fights a giant robot. And then some Spectacular Spider-Man. Final showdown with the Foreigner. I don't know how I feel about that. That feels not PC. Spectacular Spider-Man 85. We've got the Black Cat and the Hobgoblin. This is right around the time these characters first showed up. I don't think this is going to be it, because they would say there would be a blurb, you know, now fearing the Hobgoblin or something like that. But we'll look. Very cool storylines there. Some Power Man and Iron Fist. This was Marvel's attempt to compete with the very popular Green Lantern and Green Arrow. And basically what they had is, you know, a street level hero. In this case, it's Power Man, and then the super wealthy hero Iron Fist. And Iron Fist was like kind of a Batman ripoff. They would fight crime together and explore society's ills. But I think Green Lantern and Green Arrow did it a little bit better. Even though some of these are cool, the covers of these are really nice. Doombringer. That's neat. Conan. We have covered extensively at this point my love for Conan. These are likely not worth much from a resale value, but the fact that I'm putting together now a pretty comprehensive run of one of my favorite comic books is pretty awesome. I get to sit down and read all these and explore Hyperborea with everyone's favorite barbarian. Nothing too exciting so far. Hopefully we'll find some more exciting stuff pretty soon. More Conan, fighting wizards, saving maidens. Here we have a werewolf maiden. See, she's turning. Her shadow is a werewolf. Watch out, Conan. Okay. Destroyer Duck. I feel like I'm dreaming this stuff sometimes. There's such weird indie comic heroes. There was a penguin, I think, for a while. Elric. We've seen some Elric before. These are some weird sci-fi things. More Destroyer Duck, Tarzan, and Winter World. Chuck Dixon is a pretty popular writer, so it's interesting that we've got this old mini-series from him. I don't know if that'll lend it any value, but it's kind of interesting. Over here, we've got Wolverine #1 in his own monthly series. I do not know if this is going to have any value, actually, because I know they printed the absolute hell out of this issue. But we will find out. It's in not bad shape for not being in a bag. Offset a little bit, some banged up corners. Silver Surfer #1. This is early 90s, late 80s Silver Surfer #1. I don't think it's going to be valuable, but I really love the Silver Surfer. Mighty Thor. This is Malekith, the Dark Elf. This was the main bad guy in Thor 2, the movie lots of people saw and no one remembers. This is a run that I'd like to put together eventually too. This is Walt Simonson's Thor. Okay. X-Men 150. I love old X-Men stuff. Not in a bag, not in great shape. Ooh, cool. X-Men 156. This is the Starjammers. There's Cyclops' dad. He left Cyclops to go be a space pirate because that's what happened in the comic books in the 1970s. And 80s? Maybe 80s? What is... 82. So in the early 80s, dads left their kids to go be space pirates. Wolverine and the Punisher, Marvel Knights is a little bit more modern. Wolverine number 4. Oh, that's weird. A Silver Age comic made its way into this stack. An old Hulk, where he's battling a fortress. Here we've got some, this is called Cheesecake. When comic publishers weren't very good at stories. Okay, I'll finish Cheesecake. When comic book publishers weren't good at stories, they just put scantily clad women on the cover. This is Daredevil 179, and Daredevil 184 is right below it. How's that cover? Daredevil with a 357 Magnum. Okay, so the deal here is that these are Frank Miller's Daredevils. And Frank Miller wrote like the definitive run on Daredevil. He created one of the best characters with Elektra. Just an awesome run. So I know it looks like we're starting at 179. Oh, and then okay, there are more. So we're looking for 4 issues. We're looking for 131, which is earlier. We're looking for 158. 131 is the first appearance of Bullseye. 158 is Frank Miller's first issue. 168, which again, we're a little ahead of it. That's the first appearance of Elektra. If you've seen the Daredevil TV show, or I suppose the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, if we really have to mention it, Elektra is a pretty key Daredevil character, even though she only showed up in like 20 or 30 issues. But she's just great. She's this cool assassin. She's like boss. She first appeared in 168. 174, I think it's 174, is the first appearance of the Hand, which is like this group of cool ninjas, punch fight ninjas, that have been a staple of Daredevil and even like Wolverine comics ever since. And then, let's see, I think it's 181, so it's before this one too. That's the, spoiler alert, that's the death of Elektra. We got a bend. So, hopefully we get them, but we jumped right up into high number, 250, 260. Oh, we're back down to 200. 20, oh no, we're going the wrong direction. We're going the wrong direction. This is cool. So, Marvel used to do this, Assistant Editors Month. Sometimes these Assistant Editors Month comics would be really zany and weird. I don't think we're going to have them. We're not going to have those fun key issues. That's a bummer. Yep, we're going up too high. We'll get through these Daredevils, and then we'll take a look at everything and see where our prices are at. Such a cool character, though. Here's Typhoid Mary. She also appeared in the Netflix TV shows, but she was on the Jessica Drew show. She played a bad guy there. She was kind of a fun... Oh, here it is! Yes! It's not in a bag, which is a huge bummer, but it's in pretty good shape. Daredevil 181. Bullseye versus Elektra. One wins, one dies. And we've already spoiled what happens. Yeah, this kind of culminated like that definitive Frank Miller run. There it is. Look at that. The horror, the onlookers' faces. Yeah, super excited to see this. This is great. I don't think it's particularly valuable. I would have really liked to have seen those other issues I talked about. 168, especially the first appearance of Elektra, but still kind of an iconic comic book. Really something I don't have, something, again, I've never really been able to justify the purchase. And really excited to have it in my collection now. So it looks like next we've got Moon Knight, and I'm wondering, it looks like there are more than one. We're going to save this for the next episode. We're going to go and price these all out. We'll save Moon Knight for later. And we'll just cover Daredevil this time, and the Conan and everything else that we got. So I'll be right back with the results of my research, and you guys hang tight for the split second it takes me to throw a clock wipe into the video. I am back having done research, and in the latest edition of Shocking Surprises, Destroyer Duck #1, I found listed for $50. I did some research on this and got sort of a really interesting story. So this was written by a guy named Steve Gerber and drawn by Jack Kirby, who's a really popular comic book artist. While Steve was embroiled in a lawsuit with Marvel Comic Books over his ownership of the character Howard the Duck. So he created this comic book, Destroyer Duck, in an effort to fund his legal battle. And you can see at the top, Special Lawsuit Benefit Edition #1, his lawsuit against Marvel, in which Destroyer Duck goes after a giant evil mega corporation that stole his friend. So a little on the nose, but what are you going to do? In other pleasant surprises, Wolverine #1, worth more than I thought. I guess I was being cynical, but several listings at, $40, $50, $60. I think the reason I undervalued this one in my head is that I don't associate with Wolverine getting really cool until Frank Miller got a hold of him, and Frank Miller injected all this cool ninja backstory and his time in Japan and all that kind of stuff. Which was featured heavily in one of the movies, I think along with The Hand and Silver Samurai, but Silver Samurai was a robot instead of a person, so I don't know what you want from that, but that's what it is. Pleasant surprise. I also want to mention Uncanny X-Men 156. I don't remember because I don't watch the first part before I record the second part, but I may have said this was the first appearance of the Starjammers. That would have been a stupid mistake on my part. Starjammers first appeared in the Dark Phoenix saga several issues before this, in the early 100s. This is just a reappearance and a super fun cover that I really like. And then also, value-wise, nothing really to write home about. Also, X-Men 150. I only wanted to talk about this because it's a great example of later writers kind of reaching back into the past and doing cool stuff. So in X-Men 150, Magneto tries to hold the world hostage, and as part of his plan, he sinks a Russian submarine. And then decades later, when he, I believe it's when Jim Lee is doing it, but Magneto creates Avalon, a asteroid orbiting Earth where mutants can go and be safe, and he brings nuclear missiles from the submarine that he sank in this comic book up to the space station with him. So I thought that was pretty interesting, kind of fun. Now, I really hate to talk about it because it's stuff that I don't like about comic books, but I did want to mention Evangeline and She. So in researching this, I realized something that I could have seen before and didn't: a certificate of authenticity on the back. So this is one of 500 copies printed, which increases the value a little bit and makes it much more difficult to find. I eventually was able to find it. I found it on a couple websites listed in the $20 to $30 range, which I think is interesting because I have never heard of either of these characters. That's not to say that they aren't popular in their own right, but I think some of that 1 in 500 exclusivity is playing a bigger part in the value there. And that brings us to Daredevil. That brings us to Daredevil. So before we talk about Frank Miller, we're going to talk about Anna Nocenti and Typhoid Mary. Typhoid Mary is, a super... She goes crazy. She goes crazy and she starts spreading disease, and she is, an assassin, and she's just this wild, interesting, super cool character, and a really, it's my opinion, but just a great extension of the sort of darkness that Frank Miller introduced in those late 100s and early, I think just late 100s issues. And then we have Frank Miller. So we've got 179, 181, and 184. I am really hoping that we find more from Frank Miller's run. Between his art, between his writing, between the way that these stories are told and what he does with Daredevil. There's a monetary value definitely associated with all these, especially 181, even in its unbagged condition. And you better believe that as soon as this video is over, we're going to throw it in a bag and a board. And I do hope that we find those earlier key issues, 158, 168, and 174. But that being said, for me, being able to read these stories in their original form is much more valuable. Frank Miller, his personality aside, and his recent challenges aside, is just a really, I've said iconic a bunch of times, but he has done stuff with characters, whether it's Daredevil, whether it's Wolverine, whether it's Batman. He has done stuff with these characters that has elevated them to a new level. Personally speaking, I'm just stoked. I am so excited to have these. I want to be able to put together the rest of the run. I want to be able to sit down and read through a piece of comic book history the way, if you ask me, it was intended to be read. So that's it for this episode. In our next episode, we're going to get into the rest of this box. We know that there's some Moon Knight coming, and you had better believe that I have some thoughts on Moon Knight. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.